Look, for years we've been ripped off and taken advantage of by China and others, in all fairness, but by China, that's the big one. And it's just one of those things. You know, we're making $2 billion a day right now, this country. $2 billion a day with tariffs. And they were making $2 billion a day. We'll be making more. Now, when you see what happened today, I don't know if it's still there. You know, I looked an hour ago, but we're up like close to 3,000 points. Nobody's ever seen a day like that. I think that's a record, isn't it, fellas? Yeah, for is that a record? Who would have thought we were going to have a record like that after watching? But because the geniuses of the world, they get it. Our country is very strong. We were left a very, very weakened country, both economically, financially, because of all of the tariffs and all of the other companies just raiding us and ripping us off.
And that's President Trump yesterday, after issuing that 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs for some countries while keeping the 10% baseline tariff in place, while also raising the tariff on China to 125% effective immediately. The president said that was because of a lack of respect that Beijing has shown the world markets with its retaliation against the U.S. The president also told reporters he's still open to meeting with Xi Jinping.
No, sure I would. He's a friend of mine. I like him. President Xi, I like him. I respect him. But they haven't treated our country right. Sure, I'd meet with him. On the other countries, we have Japan is here, and South Korea is here, and others are here. And we're trying to see them. It's, from what I hear, it's much more than 75. I said 75 plus. So many. It's everybody wants to make a deal, actually. And you know, we want to do what's right for our country. We also want to do what's right for the world. The world is important. I mean, you know, it's the world, right? And I think we're going to make a lot of people very happy. And I think investing in the United States of America will be the greatest investment that anybody's ever made.
The president keeping allies close with this new tariff plan. Joining me now is Gatestone Institute senior fellow and the author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Gordon Chang back with us. Gordon, great to see you. Your reaction to all that has taken place here. I don't know why Xi Jinping doesn't just pick up the phone and call President Trump and try to do a deal rather than back and forth with this retaliation.
Yeah. Picking up the phone and calling President Trump would be the economically rational thing to do. China absolutely needs to do that. But Xi Jinping has configured the Chinese political system so that only the most hostile answers are considered to be acceptable, which means he's boxed himself in. He can't do that because if he does that, his Communist Party fellow leaders, they're going to criticize him. So right now, China's in a position where it can't do what it absolutely needs to do.
And I think they're trying to pressure U.S. markets. When they saw the Politburo and Xi Jinping and his leadership team, when they saw the markets were down 2,000 points, 2 days in a row, trillions of market value lost, they tried to pile on. In fact, there was an issue yesterday in the bond market where rates were spiking. And I was questioning what's going on in the bond market today. Was it a trade gone wrong, or is China selling treasuries? And I spoke with the Treasury Secretary about it. I asked Scott Bessent just that. Watch this.
There's one of these deleveraging convulsions that's going on right now in the markets, and you know, I think it's in the fixed income market. There's some very large leverage players who are experiencing losses. They're having to deleverage. I believe that there is nothing systemic about this. I think that it is an uncomfortable but normal deleveraging that's going on in the bond market, and I expect that as we see the leverage come down, the risk managers tapping people on the shoulders, telling them to bring their books down, which is what happens every couple of years as leverage builds up, then the market will calm down.
Is China jumping treasuries to try to put pressure on this this market?
Yeah, I think it works against their purposes if they are dumping treasuries, because you know, if they're dumping treasuries, then they have to buy something else. If they sell dollars, then they strengthen their currency. And as I said earlier, they've actually been weakening their currency, which is a loser for everyone. Right. And again, when I hear all these stories, the dollar is no longer going to be the reserve currency. You know, if you end up with the Chinese who are willing to use their currency as a trade tool, that doesn't seem like a very good reserve asset to me.
I was really happy to get the Secretary's commentary on the dollar, and he reiterated the U.S.'s position toward a strong dollar. But what do you think? I remember during the financial crisis back in 2007, China and Russia tried to team up, pile on, sell treasuries to pressure the market. So that immediately came to me when I saw that spike in rates yesterday.
Yeah, I think that's part of the answer of what the Chinese were doing, because they do want to put pressure on President Trump.
Yeah.
But the other thing, though, is, yes, they want their currency to weaken, but they don't want it to weaken too fast because they're worried about capital flight. So I think that they have to sell treasuries, dollar-denominated assets, to support the renminbi. But the thing that's really interesting, is that President Trump looks at this and says, I'm not afraid of you, China.
Yeah. He really did.
And the reason is, look, the Chinese don't have any cards in this. As the Treasury Secretary said, they're only holding a pair of twos, and Trump has a royal straight flush. But the point here, though, is that the Chinese think, well, we can intimidate Trump. We can coerce him into surrendering preemptively. And Trump yesterday said, look, 125% tariffs. I'm not being coerced. I'm not being intimidated. You, China, you're the ones who have to back down.
Yeah, and I love the fact that President Trump will always say things like, yeah, I want to meet him. He's my friend. We get along great, while at the same time is, putting a 125% tariff on the country. He knows his customer in communist China. And the U.S. signed a new security and defense pact to reinforce control over the Panama Canal. Pete Hegseth down at the canal. The defense secretary announced the pact during a joint press conference in Panama City yesterday. Watch this.
We also signed, with the Minister of Canal Affairs, a framework for U.S. military and auxiliary ships to travel through the Panama Canal first and free. First and free. We're working with them to ensure that we take back the canal from malign Chinese influence. And these two documents, I think, create a historic baseline and send a clear message to the region and the communist Chinese that America will stand by our allies, keep key terrain free, so that our ships, our military vessels, our auxiliary vessels are free to traverse anytime they need for any contingency around the world.
So it's another thing that China is upset about, that the U.S. is taking back the Panama Canal. And, it seems to me that China's on its back heels right now. I mean, with all of these moves from President Trump, what do you think about the Chinese economy? What's the impact here?
Well, the Chinese economy is probably around zero. And we see from the price signals, it's in a deflationary spiral down, which is really inconsistent with 5.0% growth that they reported for last year. So this is coming at a time where China's having its 2008. In 2008, they didn't want to have a recession, so they overstimulated their economy. They've accumulated all this debt. They don't know what to do with it because this debt is internal, which means if you try to resolve it, local parties are going to get hurt. They don't have the political will to do that. They got their 2008. They got Trump on tariffs. They got deglobalization. This is all hitting China at the same time, and they have no answers to this in Beijing.
Yeah, and you would think that they would come back and try to, schmooze Trump, try to get in his favor. But he recognizes that they're in a weakened position. And that 125% tariff's only going to make things worse. We'll see if they blink.
Yeah.
And who blinks first. South Korean officials are ready to talk about tariffs going down with the U.S. The country will hold snap elections in June, June 3rd, to choose the successor to former President Yoon Suk-yeol. He was ousted last year after briefly imposing martial law in the country, sparking those protests and riots. Gordon, what do you think about this? You said democracy is at risk in this presidential election, and it could affect trade deals as well.
Yeah, the leading candidate for the June 3rd election is a guy named Lee Jae-myung. And Lee Jae-myung is basically a communist, although he can't say that because he's running for president. But the problem is he's very pro-China, very pro-North Korea, anti-U.S., anti-Japan.
I see.
And so we're in a risk here because South Korea could really go red very quickly.
Wow.
But the point is, on trade deals, Yi doesn't like the United States, so he doesn't want a trade deal with the U.S. He wants to kick our troops off the peninsula. He called them an occupying force. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, right now, things are very much at a point where this is the most important election in South Korea's history, June 3rd.
I'll tell you, what a difference this president and this administration is relative to the last one, where, the Oversight Committee was investigating all the money that the Biden family took in from communist China.
Yeah, and that certainly affected Biden's decision. Biden certainly acted like he was afraid of China.
Yeah.
You know, this was really bad, and it was important for President Trump to win, you know, and this is November 5, I think, is going to be looked at as a turning point in American history. This is the golden age.
And I wonder if this whole time it was about China, that President Trump needed to put China in a corner, and he wanted to do so in tariffs, and all of this other drama around it was never the focus. I don't know. I'm beginning to see it that way. Gordon, it's great to see you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Maria.
so much. Gordon Chang here.